from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Sunday, December 24th. So today we do have the moon in Taurus going void, of course, at 1:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be locking into Gemini energy at 3:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which of course is going to take us out of the physical body and put us all the way in our mind space. So when the moon moves into Gemini energy, we do feel lighter. We do feel a little bit more, I'm going to say, alive in our headspace because we're not as connected to our physical form as we were with the moon in Taurus energy. The Gemini energy, we're curious, we're chatty, we want to interact with other people, we want to look outside of ourselves for stimulation. It's definitely a much more social type of energy than the moon in Taurus, very introverted in that energy. And so it's a very interesting dynamic because, of course, we're in Capricorn season now, so the sun is very rooted in an earth energy, and with the moon now moving into Gemini energy, we are definitely going to have some rapid processing take place in our mental plane that we're not going to be able to do a whole lot with other than to think about it, to visualize, to plan, and to strategize. So there are 10 different aspects taking place here today. 8 of them are going to involve the moon. While the moon is still very much in Taurus energy, we are going to interact with Mercury, who is retrograde now in Sagittarius energy. If you haven't listened to that astro forecast, I'm going to recommend that you do so. We have a lot to think about. We have a lot to process, if you will. And this particular energy, because the moon in Taurus is trying to keep us present, anchored, grounded in the physical body, we don't want to think too much about the past, about the future, about all the things that we do know that we have to kind of come to a certain choice point, a decision point upon. What we're trying to do right now is just stay present. And this is why we're having a little bit of a disconnect between our heart, between our head, because our heart space wants us to stay in this attitude of gratitude, really focused on the silver linings, focused on the here and now, while Mercury, again, ADHD, squirrel brain, all over the place. Yes, thinking about, all the big dreams, all the big visions, all the things that we could do as far as possibilities go. But again, that kind of projects us either too far into the future or very much in the past. The moon in Taurus wants us to stay present in the here and now. The moon in Taurus is going to trine Pluto, the great transformer himself, in Capricorn energy. We get some earth on earth energies here, which means that we're stabilizing. We understand what we have to do. We understand where we have to boss up. We understand where it is that we have to take control, not only over our thoughts and our emotions in our inner realm, but where it is that we are being kind of pushed, equipped, prepared to make major moves out in the physical realm when gifted with the green light. Go ahead to actually do just that. This is the last aspect that the moon in Taurus will be making before going void, of course. And as I previously mentioned, we dived into that Gemini energy at 3:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The first aspect that the moon in Gemini is going to make is a semi-square with Chiron, the wounded healer, who is retrograde in Aries energy. This is going to put us in a little bit of a kerfuffle, I would say, just because it highlights tension and conflict. What we're doing here is we're kind of moving up into the mental plane, moving into that heart space, and instead of seeing the growth and the healing and the repairment, we're kind of all up in our feels, really having to process, if you will, this new version of self. How are we going to anchor in this new version of self? What does this mean for us? It kind of feels like we're in a foreign body, if you will. We just had this anchor point pop off with the solstice gateway, and now we're actually moving in our physical realm with this anchored energy. So we're seeing things from a different set of eyes, and mostly we're seeing ourselves from a totally different perspective. The moon in Gemini then goes ahead, makes an interaction with the sun in Capricorn, and not a nice one. Again, Gemini energy, Capricorn energy, they're very far apart as far as elemental energies go. And so the moon, again, has this curiosity where we're kind of, weighing the pros and cons, the highs, the lows. We're seeing the division, if you will. And the sun shining a bright light in Capricorn energy is trying to show us where it is that we need to build a new structure, a new routine, new reality, new path to actually get us from where it is that we're at to where it is that we desire to be. But there's so much going on in the mental plane that we just can't focus right now. And this is why we have the disconnect. This is why we're a little bit confused. This is why we're a little bit overwhelmed. The moon does go into the boxing ring and fight it out with Saturn, though. Saturn being the Lord of karma, ruling over roles, responsibilities, systems, structures, foundations, willpower, discipline. And in this Pisces energy, we're really challenging our belief system. This is an interesting dynamic because, of course, this weighs us down. Saturn kind of pumps the brakes, if you will, and we're having a hard time staying present now that we have the moon in Gemini and, of course, Mercury, who rules over the Gemini energy, in Sagittarius, retrograde, of course. So we're just pinging off of different thoughts, off of different perspectives. We're having an inner debate that could actually project outwards. We could see that friction, that confrontation actually manifest in our conversations, in our interactions. What this particular energy is kind of highlighting for us is the uncertainty. We don't know what we're moving into. We don't know the roles and responsibilities that we're diving into. We don't know this new identity very well. So there is a lot of uncertainty. And of course, that Gemini energy has us very curious, but we don't have the information and the details that we need to have in order for Saturn to feel confident enough for us to actually start moving forward, start building a bridge to get us away from where it is that we're at to where it is that we desire to be. The sun in Capricorn energy going to sextile with Saturn, which is an interesting dynamic. Saturn, of course, ruling over this Capricorn season. This is why we're in the period of Saturnalia. And so the whole Saturn energy with the sun is really showing us where we're bossing up, where we are moving into new levels of karma, new levels of roles and responsibilities, where we are seeing the opportunity, if you will, to really exert this new identity, this new force, this new willpower, this new discipline. So the sun shining a bright light on this Saturn energy is just showing us where it is that we're growing, where it is that we're bossing up, where it is that we're ready to dive into the next set of challenges. The moon in Gemini then going to interact with Jupiter, who is retrograde in Taurus energy. This is a positive interaction, so we're definitely thinking about our options, our possibilities, the opportunities that we're anxiously awaiting to dive into. Jupiter, of course, wants us to grow. He wants us to expand on our current situation and circumstance. But again, the moon in Gemini, rapidly processing how it is that we're thinking about our options and then how it is that we're feeling about said options. This is definitely going to put us in a more optimistic, more confident type of perspective to see the big picture vision, to see the possibilities and opportunities. But again, information overload. The moon is then going to interact with Neptune, who happens to be in his place of power in Pisces. And we love this because this is how creative energy happens. This is how new ideas spark off, how we get downloaded with a new vision, new dream, new goal. This is how we get in touch with our higher selves. And then we bring it down into the lower level intellect and in our heart space to see how it is that we feel about some of these visions, some of these dreams, some of these new ideas. The moon then semi-squares the north node in Aries energy, and this is definitely putting us in a situation where we don't understand how to actually take this next step forward, how we actually start this new path, how we jump into this new chapter. We don't want to get overwhelmed with it. We don't want to get confused. We don't want to move into a state of paralysis because realistically speaking, this is not the time to initiate this new path moving forward. We're in contemplation mode. We're in visualization mode. So let's not get kind of, frustrated and paralyzed in this mental blockage, if you will, because we know that the puzzle pieces will arrive when they are needed and they will snap together to reveal how it is that we are going to progress on this new path. The last thing that we have going on here today is Mars, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desires, trining the north node in Aries energy. This is great because we're building in our motivation, we're building in our warrior spirit, we have a new determination, we have a new willpower, we have a new discipline for us to push the boundaries of what we are capable of, what we can create, what we can manifest, what we actually have power and control over. So we're starting to kind of, piece it together on what we're being called to pursue. And again, recognizing the fuel that is keeping our fire lit, either excitement or anger, doesn't matter at this point. It needs to stay at a high level frequency in order for us to actually make the physical changes that we need to make and take action upon the things that we need to take action upon in order to blaze a new path for us to move forward on.